The own nothing agenda. You've heard the phrase, "You will own nothing and be happy." You probably dismissed it as an internet conspiracy theory. It isn't, it is a business model. And in 2026, it is already written into your lease agreement. Look around. The price of a starter home has doubled. Rent eats 40% of the average paycheck. Small businesses are vanishing, replaced by chains that pay minimum wage. You feel it, don't you? The ladder is being pulled up. But here is the truth that no financial news channel will tell you: this is not a housing crisis. This is an ownership transfer. There is a specific historical pattern that has destroyed three global superpowers before us. It always starts with the death of property rights for the common man, and it always ends with a collapse. We are not in a recession. We are in a transition. We are moving from an owner society to a renter society, designed to keep you paying a subscription for your own life until the day you die. Three empires made this exact same mistake. Yours is about to be the fourth. History doesn't repeat itself, but it creates the same landlords under different names. To understand why your rent is skyrocketing and your savings are shrinking, you have to zoom out, way out. You have to realize that the last 70 years, the era where a factory worker could buy a home, a car, and support a family on a single income was not the rule of history. It was a glitch. It was a temporary historical anomaly. For 99% of human civilization, the economic model was simple: the few owned everything. The many owned nothing. We called it feudalism. In that system, the king owned the land. The lords managed the land. And you, the serf, worked the land. You were allowed to keep just enough of the harvest to stay alive and keep working. The surplus went up the chain. You had security, but you had no liberty. You had a roof, but you had no equity. For a brief moment in the 20th century, that structure broke. The middle class emerged. Suddenly, the serf could become the lord of his own quarter acre. This created the most prosperous society the world had ever seen. But now, the empire is reverting to the mean. The anomaly is ending. We are sliding back into feudalism 2.0. The new lords don't live in stone castles. They live in glass towers in Manhattan and London. They don't wear armor. They wear bespoke suits. And they don't force you to work the fields with a whip. They force you to work the cubicles with debt. But the math remains identical. In feudalism 1.0, you paid the lord a portion of your crop to live on his land. In feudalism 2.0, you pay the corporation a portion of your salary to live in their apartment, drive their leased car, and use their subscription software. They own the asset. You own the liability. They gain equity. You gain usage rights, which can be revoked the moment you stop paying. Every empire goes through this cycle. They start with a promise of freedom and property for the citizen soldier. They expand. They get rich. Then, slowly, the wealth concentrates at the top. The laws change to protect the asset holders, not the workers. The currency is debased to bail out the elite, while inflation crushes the poor. And the scary part? Every empire had the same excuse. This time is different. They tell you it's for efficiency. They tell you it's the sharing economy. They tell you it's freedom from ownership. It is a lie. It is the oldest trick in the book. Rome was the first superpower to perfect this trap. They didn't call it private equity or subscription models. They called it the Latifundia. And understanding what happened to the Roman farmer, is the only way to understand what is happening to the American middle class right now. Before Rome fell to barbarians, it fell to its own landlords. In the early days of the Republic, Rome had a simple deal with its citizens. It was a contract of blood and soil. To serve in the legion, you had to own land. You fought for Rome because Rome was literally yours. You weren't fighting for a flag, you were fighting for the 3 acres of wheat that fed your children. This created the strongest army in history, men defending their own equity. But then, success became the trap. As the empire grew, the wars got longer. Fathers and sons were deployed to Carthage, to Greece, or to Gaul for 5 or 10 years at a time. While they were bleeding on the frontier, their farms back home fell into ruin. Their wives couldn't harvest the crops alone. Debts piled up. And waiting in the shadows were the patricians, the ancient equivalent of today's Wall Street investors. While the soldiers were away, the wealthy senators bought up their land for pennies on the dollar. They didn't just buy one farm, they bought thousands. They consolidated them into massive, industrial-scale estates called Latifundia. When the legionary finally returned home, scarred and exhausted, looking for the peace he was promised, he found a fence around his ancestral home. He found a slave working his field because slave labor was cheaper than paying a free citizen. He had been replaced, displaced and destitute. These veterans flooded into the city of Rome. They moved into crowded, dangerous high-rise tenements paying rent to the same senators who had stolen their land. They became the proletariat, a class of people defined by having no assets, only children. To keep them from revolting, the state gave them bread and circuses, free grain and entertainment. But don't let the history books fool you. That wasn't charity. That was a payoff. It was the price the elite paid to keep the dispossessed from burning the city down. If this sounds familiar, it's because you have seen a softer, digital version of it in your own life. You play by the rules, you go to work, you pay your taxes, but the price of entry keeps moving just out of reach. Rome took 200 years to destroy its middle class. The American system has managed to do the same thing in just 2 decades. And it started with a single event that most of you remember clearly. A moment when the mask slipped and the transfer of wealth went into overdrive. You thought 2008 was a crash. For them, it was a shopping spree. Most people look back at the Great Recession and see a tragedy. They see the subprime mortgages, the Lehman Brothers collapse, and the millions of jobs lost. But if you look at the ledger, 2008 wasn't a failure of the system. It was the largest transfer of wealth in human history. Here is the part of the story the movies didn't show you. When the bubble burst, millions of American families lost their homes. Their credit was destroyed. They were locked out of the market. Prices in cities like Phoenix, Atlanta, and Las Vegas fell by 50 or 60%. This was the buying opportunity of the century. But you couldn't buy. You were broke. You know who wasn't broke? The institutions. The Federal Reserve dropped interest rates to near zero and printed trillions of dollars to save the economy. But that money didn't go to the family being evicted in Detroit. It went to the banks and the private equity firms. Armed with billions in practically free money, giant investment firms began buying single-family homes. Not by the dozens, by the thousands. They went to the courthouse steps and bought entire neighborhoods in cash. In some zip codes, they purchased 90% of the available inventory. Before 2008, Wall Street didn't care about your three-bedroom suburban house. It was too messy. Leaking toilets and broken fences were problems for mom and pop landlords. But technology changed that. New software allowed them to manage 40,000 homes as easily as they managed a stock portfolio. Imagine a family in Arizona in 2009. They lose their home to foreclosure. They move into an apartment. 3 years later, they save up enough to rent a house again. They move back into the same neighborhood. But this time, the check doesn't go to a neighbor. It goes to a P.O. box owned by a conglomerate in New York. They went from building equity to paying a dividend. This was the birth of the single-family rental industry. It didn't exist before 2010. Now, it is a monster that devours starter homes before they even hit the market. They bought the dip using money printed in your name. You paid for your own dispossession. But 2008 was just the setup. To ensure you stay a renter forever, they couldn't just rely on a one-time crisis. They needed a permanent mechanism. A lock that tightens every single year. They don't want to sell you the product anymore. They want to rent you the lifestyle. To understand why you can't get ahead, you have to stop looking at your budget and start looking at the cage they have built around you. It isn't just one bad law or one greedy landlord. It is a four-stage mechanism designed to convert your labor into their capital. This is the cycle of subscription serfdom. Lock number one is monetary inflation. They print money to stimulate the economy. But new money always flows to assets first. It pumps up the price of stocks and real estate while your wages stay flat. This creates a gap. The asset owners get richer without working. You work harder just to stay in the same place. The house you wanted isn't worth more. Your money is just worth less. Lock number two is financialization. In the old world, a house was shelter. In this world, a house is a financial vehicle. It is a line item on a hedge fund's balance sheet. It is collateral for a loan. When you try to buy a home, you are not competing with another family. You are competing with a pension fund that needs a 4% yield to pay its retirees. You are bringing a paycheck to a knife fight against a printing press. Lock number three is regulation. You might think the government would step in to help. Wrong. Local governments have made it illegal to build affordable housing. Through zoning laws, building codes, and environmental reviews, they have made it so expensive to build that only giant corporations can afford to navigate the red tape. They pull up the ladder behind them to protect the property values of the boomers, leaving you on the ground floor. Lock number four is the subscription. Once you are priced out of ownership, they offer you the solution. Don't subscribe. Rent the house. Lease the car. Finance the phone. Pay monthly for the software. They sell it as convenience. It is actually dependency. When you buy, you pay once. When you subscribe, you pay forever. This is not a bug in capitalism. This is the feature designed to strip you of equity. It is a perfect, closed loop. The inflation pushes up the asset price. The financialization turns the asset into a rental product. The regulation prevents new competition, and you are forced into the subscription. You are feeling this right now. Maybe you are stuck in the first lock, watching your down payment evaporate. Maybe you are in the fourth lock, realizing you pay $3,000 a month, but own nothing. But if you think this is bad, wait until you see how this framework is being applied to the year 2026. Because now, they are done buying old houses. They have started building entire cities designed so you can never leave. Welcome to the neighborhood where no one owns anything, and everyone is smiling. For now. If 2008 was about scavenging the dead carcasses of the housing market, 2026 is about something far more sophisticated. The institutions realized that fighting over individual used houses is inefficient. So, they stopped buying. And they started building. We have entered the era of build to rent. Drive through the Sun Belt today through Phoenix, Atlanta, or Charlotte. You will see brand new subdivisions. They look exactly like the American dream. They have picket fences, manicured lawns, and granite countertops. But try to buy one. You can't. The entire community, every single street, every single mailbox is owned by one corporation. These aren't apartments. They are single-family homes designed specifically to extract maximum rent from families who, 10 years ago, would have been owners. And here is the cruelest twist of the current economic moment. You might be waiting for interest rates to drop, or for prices to crash, so you can finally buy. You are waiting for the market to correct. But the market isn't correcting. It's consolidating. When interest rates are high, you get crushed because you need a mortgage. A 7% rate doubles your monthly payment. It knocks you out of the game. But the mega funds, they don't need a 30-year fixed mortgage from a bank. They have billions in cash from investors. Or they have access to cheap corporate debt lines that you will never see. High rates are a filter. They filter out the families, leaving the field wide open for the giants. While you are sitting on the sidelines saving your pennies, they are pouring concrete. In some U.S. markets, nearly 1/3 of all homes sold are now going to investors, not residents. This effectively turns your city into a company town. You work for a corporation, you buy food from a corporation, and now, you pay rent to a corporation to sleep in a house that stands on land you will never own. If you don't believe me, pause this video right now. Open a new tab. Search for build-to-rent communities near me. Look at the results. It will send a shiver down your spine. But who is actually doing this? Who is the landlord behind the LLC? It's not a person you can call when the heat goes out. It is a ghost in the machine. Your landlord isn't a person anymore. It is an algorithm. If you are angry at your property manager because your rent went up 20% this year, you are blaming the wrong person. The person at the front desk doesn't set the price. Often, the owner doesn't even set the price. A piece of software does. This is the hidden architecture of the trap. In the past, landlords competed with each other. If landlord A raised the rent too high, you moved to landlord B. That competition kept prices down. It was basic capitalism. But what happens when landlord A and landlord B both use the same software to tell them what to charge? Enter the yield chasers, the unholy alliance of private equity capital and big tech data. Companies like RealPage have created algorithms that collect private data from millions of rental units. The software analyzes the market and tells the landlords exactly how much to push the price. And here is the kicker: the algorithm often advises them not to lower the rent, even if the apartment is empty. It calculates that it is more profitable to keep units vacant and prices high than to fill them at a discount. It is a cartel without a handshake. It is collusion by code. Behind this software stands the money. The Blackstones, the Vanguards, the pension funds. These aren't evil villains twisting their mustaches. They are cold, amoral machines. Their only mandate is yield. They need a return on investment that beats inflation. And the safest, most reliable yield in the world right now is your monthly housing payment. To them, you are not a human being looking for shelter. You are an annuity. You are a predictable stream of cash flow that can be bundled, securitized, and traded on the stock market. They have removed the humanity from housing. If you lose your job, a human landlord might give you a month to figure it out. An algorithm just initiates eviction protocol number 4. They have rigged the game so they cannot lose. If the economy booms, they raise rents. If the economy crashes, they buy more property at a discount. They profit either way, you bear all the risk. But while they count their yield in percentages on a spreadsheet, you measure the impact in a very different way. You measure it in the years of your life that are being stolen. If you don't own your home by 65, you don't retire. You just expire. We talk about housing as an investment, but we forget its primary function in your life plan. For the last 70 years, the social contract was simple: you work for 30 years to pay off a mortgage. By the time you retire, your income drops, but your biggest expense, housing, disappears. You live rent-free on your own equity. That is how the middle class survived old age. The Own Nothing agenda destroys that equation. If you are a renter for life, your housing cost doesn't disappear when you turn 65. It gets higher. Much higher. Imagine this. You are 70 years old. You are on a fixed income. Maybe Social Security. Maybe a small pension. Every year, the cost of bread and medicine goes up. But the killer is the letter on your door. Your corporate landlord has raised the rent by 10%. Again. You can't pay it. So what do? You move. At 70. You pack up your life into cardboard boxes and try to find a cheaper place. Further from your doctors. Further from your grandkids. This is the death of stability. It's not just about money. It's about rootlessness. It's about the anxiety of knowing you are a guest in your own life. It's about pulling your children out of school because the lease is up and the renewal offer is impossible. It's about never being able to paint a wall, plant a tree, or say, "This is mine." We are creating a generation of nomads who are one eviction notice away from homelessness. Look at the elderly greeter at your local supermarket. Look closely. They aren't working at 75 because they love the community. They are working because rent is due on the 1st. This is the future the system has designed for you. Rent is the only expense that follows you to the grave. Ownership is the only shield you have. So, if the game is rigged, if the prices are fixed, and if the money is broken, is there any way out? Or do we just accept our fate as serfs in a digital kingdom? There is a way, but it requires you to stop thinking like a consumer and start thinking like a deserter. The Own Nothing agenda is not a law of physics. It is a bet. They are betting that you will choose convenience over liberty. They are betting that you will be too distracted by the latest iPhone, the newest streaming service, and the shiny lease on a car you can't afford, to notice that the ground beneath your feet is being sold out from under you. They want you to be a permanent tourist in your own country. But now, you see the pattern. You see the locks. And seeing the trap is the first step to escaping it. I am not here to give you financial advice. I am here to give you a mental weapon. You have to undergo a fundamental shift in how you view money. Stop waiting for the system to save you. Stop waiting for prices to return to 2010. That world is gone. The empire has chosen inflation and serfdom as its survival strategy. You must stop thinking like a consumer and start thinking like an accumulator. Every dollar you spend on a subscription, whether it is a streaming service or a rented lifestyle, is a vote for your own dependency. Every dollar you put into a hard asset, whether it is a small piece of land, a physical metal, or a business of your own, is a brick in a wall that protects your family from the storm. It doesn't matter how small you start. It matters that you start building equity. Equity is the only language the system respects. It is the only thing that cannot be inflated away or cancelled by an algorithm. In 2026, the most rebellious act you can commit is to own something. Anything. To plant a flag and say, "This is mine. You cannot rent this back to me." You cannot fix the empire, but you can refuse to be its serf. If this video helped you connect the dots, if it made you feel less crazy for thinking the game is rigged due to things, first, share this with the one person in your life who is still asleep at the wheel. The friend who thinks renting is freedom. They need to wake up before the last lock clicks shut. Second, subscribe, because in the next video, we are going to look at the other side of this equation. We will look at the specific assets that have historically survived when empires collapse, and how the architects are positioning their own portfolios right now. You cannot restart the game, but you can stop playing by their rules. See you there.